What's up, guys? Today I am here with Mike Davis, and we're going to be answering our 18 most asked questions from TikTok, and we will either agree or disagree with these statements. So, Mike, you ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
Hell yeah, let's do it. And I put them all in a wheel, and the first question is, the first statement, I guess, is,
Open your eyes.
engineering is not as hard as people say. Boom. I hard agree with that. I'm very curious what your opinion is, though.
No, I totally agree as well. I think that there's a lot of fear mongering out there and accounts that are solely dedicated to making engineering harder than it actually is. It's still a hard degree. It's arguably the hardest undergraduate degree there is, but I think people say it's harder than it is at the same time. I agree.
Absolutely. I feel like a lot of it is people, when they say something is harder than it actually is, it makes them feel more proud of their accomplishment. And I think that's kind of what stems into it. Once again, I still think it's very difficult. I mean, I had a semester where it was basically 24/7, go, go, go. But genuinely, overall, I don't think it's nearly as difficult as some people on TikTok will say it is. Sweet. The next one is, you should join a fraternity. Ooh.
You go first.
I'm honestly torn. I did not join a frat, but I think I agree with this more than I disagree with it. I'm curious what your opinion is, though.
I disagree. Gonna have to hold up my red cup because I think that there are more productive things. And when it comes to engineering majors specifically, at least, I think that a lot of the reason why people would want to join a fraternity is for the networking aspect of it and trying to get an internship. And I just don't really think the odds of that happening are in your favor. And you're going to be more productive if you just do a project on the side.
Yeah, I mean,
So I just,
I agree with everything you said. I do think that there's more productive things, but for me, if you are debating between joining a fraternity or not, I think that you should. I was hard torn on not joining a frat, which is why I didn't. I still met a ton of people, but of all my friends who were like on the fence of joining a frat or not, who joined a frat, I think they would all say it's 100% worth it. And the biggest thing that my friends who are in a frat have is like a couple ride or die friends, which is kind of hard to get unless you're in something that's really shitty, and you guys kind of bond over that. And that's something I feel like is really valuable about the military, is you're in this really shitty thing and you really bond with these people, and that's how I see a frat in college. So if it's something that you're kind of debating joining, I think it's a good way to meet a lot of people and really have those ride or die friends.
yeah, I agree. I think it depends on the type of person you are because for somebody like me, I'm super close to my high school friends, so I don't really have the need to make like ride or die friends, to be honest. But I also do know that some fraternities kind of brand themselves as STEM fraternities, where a lot of the students in there do prioritize their academic success and stuff, and it's not just partying and studying. So I think there are instances where you should join a fraternity, but if you're being realistic, a lot of them do not prioritize your academic success.
Yeah, definitely, definitely true. I honestly could go either way on that one. Oh, all-nighters are productive.
I disagree.
I also hard disagree.
I think that if you know a third of the material and you don't pull an all-nighter, that's probably better for you because if you pull an all-nighter and you only know a third of the material, you might forget the third of the material because you are extremely tired. I don't think that's a productive way of doing anything.
Yeah, I would never stay up late to do something that you wouldn't wake up early for. That's something I think is very valuable to think about. A lot of people, I mean, it applies very obviously to things like Netflix, right? If you wouldn't wake up early to watch a show of Netflix, is it really worth staying up late to watch another episode? But I think it applies to
That's a
studying as well.
wow.
And that is, if you wouldn't stay up late, or if you wouldn't wake up early to study that material, is it really worth staying up late for? I think sleep is extremely valuable. I think it's one of the most undervalued thing by college students. And whatever you're going to learn or accomplish in those next 4 hours, I don't think is as valuable as that sleep is.
Yeah.
Can you be an engineer without an engineering degree? And I know this is one we're going to disagree on, but I hard agree. I'm actually going to give my stance first here. Do you disagree first?
Can you be an engineer without an engineering degree? I
Correct.
agree with that.
Oh, you
Yeah, I
do
think that.
agree.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yes.
Okay. Let me hear your agree. I thought you would disagree, actually.
So it's kind of an anecdotal reason, but when I did my first electrical engineering internship, there was a guy in there that had a business undergraduate degree, and he was in his mid 50s. I'm not saying this is like possible to do this now, but he worked as a drafter and then moved up to the engineer title and worked as an engineer for 12 years and eventually passed the FE exam, the PE exam, which I know is not valuable in some fields, but this guy can stamp his own engineering drawings, but he doesn't have an engineering degree. Are we going to sit here and say he's not an engineer? I wouldn't. I would still say he's an engineer.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the exact same boat where it's an anecdotal reason, but I'm in the oil and gas field, and I work with a lot of inspectors. And if you get knowledgeable enough as an inspector, a lot of times you will end up getting the exact position that I'm in right now because you are learning a lot of the same things. And they don't have a degree, but they have 10 years of experience, which honestly is far more valuable to me than the degree is going to teach. To me, it's easier to learn the equations. Um, After the experience than it is to understand the experience after learning the equations, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yep.
Ooh, okay, this is one I know for a fact we're going to disagree on. You should tell people in interviews you want to go into management. I strongly agree.
Yeah, I disagree. I disagree for one reason. I think that a lot of employers, at least from my experience, want you to develop the technical skills first. In internships that I were in, they really valued the fact that in my previous internships, I was using specific types of softwares like AutoCAD and Revit and other softwares as well. So I just don't see a reality where management type of people would want to see you go into management right off bat, right when you get into the real world.
Yeah, I disagree for anecdotal reasons, and then I kind of have my perspective on it. So, when I was at career fairs, first of all, the first time I really felt strongly about you needing to tell people what your real life goals are is Cat Day with the company Caterpillar at a career fair where they saw I had a minor in management. And at this point, I would agree with your stance, but they were like, "Wow, we are looking for engineers who want to go into management." And I remember the recruiter even said, "You're like the golden egg. Go talk to this guy." And I ended up getting a full time job offer with them because of that. With a like it was a management oriented rotation program. Then from that point on, I told everybody in interviews that I wanted to go into management. And there are times where it absolutely closed that door because they were not looking for engineers who wanted to go into management. They were looking for engineers who wanted to go into a technical route. But the doors that were open or left open for me were jobs that I really wanted, where I could go down the route that I really wanted to go down. For example, my current company, because I told them explicitly I wouldn't take the job unless I could go down more of a management path in the next 2 to 4 years. When I told them that, they put me into a program at my current company where they're helping me do that. So I think it's very valuable to be honest. And yes, it will close doors, but the doors that are left open are going to be more valuable to you.
I can see that. I will say that I think a lot of the reason why I would recommend not saying you want to go into management is because of the risk that you're putting on yourself. I think that if you have technical skills, then you become a lot more marketable to other companies. Let's say they have some sort of business change where they don't need your position anymore and you get fired. Well, if you have experience in management, but you also have technical skills, then you're going to be more marketable as if, instead of if you just went into management right out of college.
I
That's the way
absolutely,
I see it.
yeah, I absolutely agree. I do not think you should go into management right out of college. I think that you should spend 2 to 4 years in a technical role because then when you get into management, your technical knowledge plus your management knowledge is going to make you stand out in a room full of people that went into management right out of school. And your ability to stand out is what's going to make you valuable. So I do 100% agree with that.
Yeah, seems like we found middle ground right there.
Absolutely. You need to join a club.
I disagree. I don't
I
think you need to. It's super beneficial, but I don't think that it's going to stump your growth or your success as an engineering student. I've gotten plenty of internship interviews without being in a club.
Yeah, I also disagree, but I think if this said you should join a club, I would agree. I don't know if,
I agree with that.
yeah,
Yes.
I did not join a club either, and I honestly regret it. I think that joining a club related to your major is the best way to get experience without getting an internship. A lot of people will say, how do I get an internship without experience? And the answer is you get experience. And the best way to get that experience to me is a club, because it's something that the school offers that will give you experience without needing a company to interview you and take you for that position.
Yeah, I think it also depends on the club as well, because if you go to a large school that has like an ASME there and they have tons of funding and they're doing projects that are like really cool, then maybe that would really benefit you a lot. Maybe you should join a club. Maybe you do need to join a club. But if you go to a smaller school where there's not a lot of clubs even offered in the engineering realm, then I don't really see the need for it. But
Yeah.
sure, you should.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And once again, I didn't join any clubs, and I still got internships just fine, but I think it would have been much easier had I joined a club. Good communication is more important than good technical knowledge.
I would like more context, but I would say
I very
that's
strongly
tough.
agree. While you're thinking, I will answer. For me, in the real world, like in my current job, I am actually doing engineering maybe 30% of the time. The rest of the time is talking to stakeholders, talking to people, talking to my boss, making sure that he knows what my work list looks like. And when it comes to actually getting those jobs as well in an interview, this is the thing that they're going to judge you on more. For most jobs, they're going to care more about your ability to communicate in the interview than your actual technical knowledge. Yes, they'll ask you some technical questions, but at the end of the day, it's a human being. They're going to hire the person that they like the most, not necessarily the person that they think is the most technically fit for that job. And I think that is honestly the correct practice, because once you get to the real job, you're spending 40 hours a week with these people. Your ability to be likable, your ability to communicate effectively is going to be more valuable than your technical knowledge.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I guess the only thing that I would maybe push back on a little bit would be that there is a balance. Like if you're interviewing for a specific, I don't know, hardware engineering internship and they ask you a very technical question and you just bomb every single question, some people may not want to hire you because of that. So, but I will concede, I'll nod my head that good communication definitely would cook you. If you just are terrible at communication, you're probably done. You're not getting the internship. And in a full time job, it's super important. I agree.
Absolutely. All right.
I'm good.
Next question. After figuring out some potential mic issues. Ooh, completely non-engineering related. Minecraft is the best video game of all time.
I agree. I definitely agree because I think that it has lasted the longest. It came out in what, 2009? I mean, name one other video game that has lasted as long as that didn't have another game come out with that. Like it's not Black Ops where they create new games every year. It's just Minecraft. So,
Yeah, you can do whatever you want in Minecraft. If you want to be competitive, there's so many things you can be competitive in. If you just want a playground, it's like one of the best playground games. Whatever your age is, you can find something that is mentally stimulating enough in Minecraft for you to enjoy. And every single time I've gone back to play it, I've had a seriously amazing time. I literally can't think of a more simple, perfect video game than Minecraft.
I mean, you know it's great when you go through a Minecraft phase and you just cannot stop playing it for 2 weeks. You have to quit because you've played it 50 hours in the last 2 weeks and you're like, I can't. I'm done.
Yeah, I can't even think of another game that people could argue that I would be like, yeah, I could see that argument. Like genuinely.
I guess maybe GTA 5 just because of how long it's been out and how many people still play and the revenue is generated. But other than that, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything else.
Yeah, for me those are the top two. Career fairs are the best ways to get a job or internship.
I disagree.
Whoa.
I think that
Okay.
they're a great way to get internships or a job, but I think that you can do other things that are much more productive. Like for example, messaging people on LinkedIn. I mean, applying to jobs on LinkedIn. But I will say, seeing somebody in person, you can sell yourself a lot better. But you only get to meet what, a dozen different companies when you're there. Whereas applying online, if you just had to choose between the two, I would go with the online every single time.
Wow, I strongly disagree. I think that in person is by far the best way to get a job or internship. For me, online, you're tossing your name into an application of thousands of other people, and it's just hours of endless applying, and it feels not fulfilling at all. But the second you get face to face and you can really sell yourself to that person and understand why they might say no, it's far more satisfying, and my success rate is remarkably higher. My senior year career fair success rate was almost 100%, where I got a job offer from every company I interviewed with, and I got an interview with basically every company I talked to at the career fair. But applying online my freshman through junior year was basically like, what, 5%? Where it felt like I was just throwing my name, and I didn't even know if they were ever actually looking at my resume.
Yeah, I could definitely see that perspective. I mean, I agree with that to an extent. I think that in the context of not being able to talk to as many companies at a career fair compared to online, then, if you had to choose between the two, am I going to go with the smaller sample of companies? But I get your argument that your success rate is going to be a lot higher with the in-person one.
So if you had to pick only career fairs or only applying online, which would you pick?
I'm still going to go online.
Really?
Yep.
Wow. Yeah, I'd go career fairs all day. I didn't even, if I could go back in college, I don't even think I'd apply online. I think I would only do
Wow,
the career
really?
fair. Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting.
Interesting.
That's awesome. Let's do one more on the wheel, and then we'll pick one that we can fight about. The college you go to matters.
Interesting. I think it only matters if you have terrible grades. That's my opinion.
I want to hear that perspective. I agree. I think the college you go to matters regardless.
Okay. I think that, like, to say that you don't get more benefits, there's not more pros to going to a large college would be a lie. Definitely agree with you there. But I think that at the end of the day, you can be just as successful if you go to a smaller school or a medium sized school if you get great grades and know your stuff. I mean, I'm kind of using my own anecdotal experience from this. I don't go to a large school at all. And I still interviewed with Lockheed, Northrop, like Raytheon, every big defense contractor there is for engineering internships. I didn't get them because I didn't do that well in the interviews, which, may have been because of academic stuff. Some interviews I did do well, but I think that it doesn't really matter as much as people say. That's kind of what my opinion is.
I would agree. It definitely does not matter as much as people say, but I think it absolutely matters. My company, for example, we're one of the biggest companies, and we have thousands, tens of thousands of people even applying to internships every single year. And we won't even really consider people unless they go to a bigger college, which is just the harsh
Really?
reality. Yeah, and also on top of that, where we're going to send recruiters is only going to be the bigger schools, because we only have so many recruiters, so much time that recruiting hours, and we're not going to send them to the smaller schools. We still hire people from smaller schools. For example, the guy who sits right to my right at work went to Tennessee State University. He graduated with 5 mechanical engineers from that school. So it is possible. But if you look around our office, it is Purdue, A&M, Texas, Georgia Tech, and that's really about it. So I know that's a bit anecdotal, but I genuinely
Yeah,
think that going to a bigger school, you're just going to have more national offers. Whereas if you go to a smaller school, you'll have all the best companies in your area, but not necessarily on a national scale.
I think it also depends on the hiring manager as well, because at my first electrical engineering internship, my boss's boss, like the VP of the company, I went to a site with him, and he was telling me about how he didn't really like hiring interns from the best of the best schools with the highest GPAs because a lot of them didn't really like that type of work. Because if you're not working in defense, like a field that is typically deemed quote unquote really cool to a lot of people, and you're working in like the construction engineering field or consulting engineering field, then a lot of the time those really great students at really great schools can be disappointed in the type of work that they're doing. So I also kind of think it depends on the hiring manager. And he was somebody that went to a great school as well.
So let me actually pivot, and I'm going to ask you a completely different question because I'm curious your perspective.
Sure.
I'm sure you've had a million people tell you, "Hey, I'm torn between this school and this school. Which one should I pick?" That's like
Of
easily
course.
my most asked question. It's not even close. What is your go-to answer for that?
Honestly, it's super anecdotal. It's super like specific to that person's life because everybody has their own stuff going on financially, grades, like everything. But and a lot of the time when somebody asks me that question, I don't even know the college that they're referring to because it could be all the way across the country. But a lot of the time I do resort to finances. I do. Because if they genuinely have zero money and they just cannot afford to go out of state and they are not confident in their abilities, then that's just not something I would recommend. I think that it would be more responsible to go to a community college for 2 years, pass a lot of those sophomore level engineering courses, maybe go to a in-state school, or if then you want to transfer to that out-of-state school and pay, a ton of money, then you can do that.
Yeah.
So it's hard to give like a direct black and white answer to that type of question. I try to get to know
Mhm.
their specific situation first.
Yeah.
What about you?
For me, I agree. Like, I can't answer for them. I'll never tell them what school if they give me a list of schools. But what I'll tell them is a checklist. And this is the checklist I think you should go down. First of all, is there an area of the country that you want to live in when you graduate? If people are like Penn State or Florida and they want to live in Florida when they graduate, go to school in Florida, right? You're going to have every single job in that state at your career fair. And once again, I think career fairs are the most important way to get jobs. If you go to Pennsylvania, you only have a couple schools from Florida at your career fair, and it's going to be the most competitive ones. So that's the first thing on my checklist. The second thing is just tour the schools. A lot of times when people will tour the schools, they will fall in love with one, and your decision just got a lot easier. And then after that, we can start considering things like finances, which obviously, if you can't afford a school, finances should come number one. But then we'll like weigh out how much this school costs versus this one, ranking, things like that. But I think the two most important are school location and honestly just the vibe of when you tour. That's kind of the checklist I'll run down.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. Yeah.
Sweet. Let's do one more. Is there anything you really want to cover as far as the eight remaining?
Let's do the six figures one.
All right. Engineers should expect six figures at graduation. I think we're going to both very much agree on this by disagreeing.
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah, this is something that's been really frustrating me in my comment section, and that is people who will say you should major in X engineering because it guarantees you six figures out of school. And typically it is computer engineering or like I've seen marine engineering a lot, and that to me
Yep.
is just complete crap. If you are expecting six figures at graduation, you are going to be disappointed. I was one of those people where my freshman sophomore year, I was expecting six figures because I went to a really good school, and then I started meeting seniors and hearing how much their salary was, and I was getting really worried. So I want to be
Yeah.
that reality check for you. That way you don't expect more than what you're actually going to end up receiving.
And it's a really unfortunate thing because, like you said, a lot of people go into college majoring in engineering with this mindset of like, my life is just going to be given to me and I'm going to be earning $110,000 a year right out the gate. It's not like that in almost engineering field. Yes, there are specific instances where maybe people have interned in the software engineering field and they got a return offer at the very end and they're a little over 100K. But most of the time, like you said, you're not earning 100 grand right out of school.
Yeah, absolutely
Yeah.
not. What do you think people should expect in just
I
engineering as
think
a broad field?
so. This is a really awesome question because I get asked that question all the time. Is this intern pay good? Is this full-time salary good? And my answer is that it depends on a lot of different things. Depends on what field you're in, not so much discipline, but the field of engineering you're in, like construction, consulting, defense, whatever. And it also depends on the geographical location. Like you could be living in the middle of nowhere compared to downtown in a big city where rent is really expensive. So it's hard to compare salaries like that.
Hmm.
But I would say if you are an engineering major, generally you should be getting paid around 60 grand starting. I would say anything less than 60 grand definitely raises my eyebrows a little bit.
Hmm. Yeah, I would agree. I only know one guy who's making less than 60 grand, and unfortunately, he's in California as well. So
Wow, that's
yeah, I
crazy.
was like, yeah, he did not put the effort in though. But usually, what I tell people is expect an average of about 82K. I think that's the average of what I've heard. Um, I know a decent amount below that. I know a decent amount above that, and it's a skewed right field. So I know some people that are in mid six figures even, but expect about 82K is
Yeah.
kind of what
And
I'll
I also
say.
don't mean to even complicate the situation, but when it comes to salary as well, there are other factors that play
Oh
into it.
yes.
For example, with the type of field that I've been in, like you can have a hybrid job in the consulting engineering field where you don't need to drive to work 2 days a week. You're not spending gas, you're not putting, a ton of wear and tear in your car, which will save you thousands and thousands of dollars eventually. So little things like that do add up.
Yeah, absolutely. And then also, when it comes to a negotiation, don't just look at that salary number. Look at things like how many days off you have, your pension, your 401k match. There's so much
Yep.
more to look at. like Mike's saying, than just your salary. Your total comp package, oftentimes your salary is only about 2/3 of that, and you got to consider that other third as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this was awesome, Mike. Yeah, if you guys have any more questions or statements for us, let us know, and I'd be happy to do this again. But Mike, this was awesome. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. It was fun.
Sweet.